Hey, what's going on? This is Dylan with Dylan Talks Tone. Having some coffee this morning, and we're going to talk about frets. What to do when you buy a cheap guitar and you have some problems with some frets, because it's just a thing with cheaper guitars, and we'll get into why in a minute. First of all, remember the 30,000 subscriber giveaway guitar. This is it right here, the Ibanez AX120. And if you're not familiar, if you comment on this video or any of the videos that have the little disclaimer at the bottom until we hit 30,000 subscribers, if you have to be a subscriber, the notification bell has to be on, and you have to comment in the video. That's all you have to do. And then we're going to pick a winner from all of those comments, and we're going to give you this guitar. But we got some work to do first. So we're going to talk about how to deal with fret situations, sharp frets especially, on guitars, especially when they're not very expensive guitars. So this guitar is only $200, so there comes some work along with that. First of all, we want to talk about frets themselves before we understand why we're doing what we're doing. A lot of people in the comments of the last video were like, do I need to do this to my guitar? Well, let me explain what we're doing, and then you decide. The fret that you see on your guitar, so here, I've got another neck that's just a neck. So the fret that you see on your guitar, it appears flat, right? Or, radius to whatever the fretboard is, but nevertheless, it's a piece of metal this long that has been hammered into the guitar. And if you look across the fret this way, okay, and you look at a cross section of it, you'll see that there is a tang on the bottom of the fret that goes down into the neck. And then you see the width and the height of the top of the fret that we see, okay? There's barbs on the side of that fret tang that actually, when you hammer this into the guitar, it holds the fret into the guitar. Believe it or not, this is what you see as the finished product. However, this fret wire actually comes in a big roll. And what they do is they cut pieces that are a little bit longer than the neck is wide. They hammer those frets in, or they press them in. It depends on the scale of the operation, and how automated it is depends on how big the factory is. And then they come along with a fret nipper, and they cut off the ends of the fret, okay? And if you look at the end of this tool, you'll see it's flat. So you would think, well, if you cut it off flat, then it'll be flat. The more care you give this and the more time you give it, the better the result. Sometimes with a less expensive guitar and a bigger factory, they just and cut them off, and as a result, you'll have a sharp end on a fret. And what I mean by that is, and we're going to get to protruding frets in a minute, but the sharp end on the fret, what I mean by that is if you look at the end of this fret, you'll see like there's a hard line, and you can tell where they cut the fret off, and it's got like a hard line on it. Now that might not necessarily cut your hand. It's not like a safety thing or anything, but it is a comfort thing, because as your hand is going up and down the neck, those are hard edges that you're catching. And honestly, that's pretty common on most guitars, even more expensive guitars. It's only when you get into custom builds and, kind of handwork that you get a more refined and finished end on the fret. So most good quality guitars even will have a fret that looks like this from the factory, or something very similar to it, especially in a high production situation. Now, the other problem that you can have with frets is due to humidity changing, mostly going away. So when it dries up, wood shrinks. Well, obviously the fret doesn't shrink. So any sloppiness done on the part of the person that was nipping the frets in the beginning, and the lack of finish time that they put into it, is exaggerated when the neck shrinks a little bit, and then all of a sudden you have a fret protrusion on the end. That's what we have on this guitar. And so when you run your hand up and down the edge, you can feel the ends of the frets kind of sticking out. That is also compounded by the fact that on this guitar we have binding on the neck, and the binding is not like it's not like a Gibson ES335, right? It's a little lumpy. You can tell it's a little cheaper guitar. And by nature, a bound neck, many times the fret actually sticks out from beyond the end of the fret into the binding. So then if the binding's a little lumpy, then the end of the fret might stick out a little bit, and you have this little rough end. That gives you a little kind of background on why we're even messing with frets. So let's go ahead and fix the frets on this guitar, and I'll give you a couple of simple ways that you can do this if you feel comfortable doing it. Before you start, I'm going to tell you, if you don't feel comfortable doing this, take it to your guitar tech and he'll do it for you. It's not that expensive and it is worth it. But let me show you how. All right, bare fretboard. The other thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and use the Lizard Spit Ultimate Fret Polishing System, and we're going to give these frets a polish today. And then we're going to use Lizard Spit Fretboard Oil, and we are going to get this fretboard looking and feeling how we want it to feel. I'll put a link to these in the description of this video, but basically this is just a simple, cheap file set. Okay, just a super simple, cheap file set. Now there's two different parts of this fret situation that we need to mend. One is the actual ends of the frets that are sticking out from the guitar. Now there's a couple of different ways you can do this. I just use a flat file, and I basically just come along, and where I feel the end of the guitar fret sticking out, I just run it along the very edge. Now here's the thing, you have to be careful that you don't roll over too far on the side of the neck and scar, you know, whatever binding or whatever finish there is. But the whole point is it's sticking out, so you shouldn't have that problem. So we come along here, and it really, you don't have to press, you don't have to work it back and forth a bunch of times. Just go back and forth very slowly, and you'll feel the end of the fret, right? You'll feel it. And as you come back, you'll say, well, oh, that one's still sticking out a little bit. And then I like to have a set of like 800 grit sandpaper afterwards and finish it. All right, so I think we've got the fret ends cleaned up. It feels pretty smooth going all the way along here. I feel a couple of little ends left, but I feel like that's not the end of the fret sticking out, but it's actually the fact that the edge of the end of the fret, like we saw in this picture earlier, the edge of it is cut off very sharply. So now what we want to do is we want to kind of round over that edge so that we don't feel it so much. This is a little trickier and it takes a little bit more time. What I typically use for that is like a 3-angle file. And what you're going to do is basically, if you look at this picture and you visualize the fact that you want to get that edge to go away. Now we don't want to go too far back into the fret, but what we want to do is just round off that edge. So let me see if I can find one. What we're going to do is we're basically going to take this, and we don't want to saw into the fretboard. We want to stay completely on the fret, and we just want to round off that edge. We come over to the other side. And then maybe we do like a kind of roll over the top sort of deal. And that looks pretty good. Now that edge is totally gone. Again, this takes a lot of patience and a lot of time, because you're literally going to go through here one at a time, and you're going to look at basically 3 angles on this fret. You're going to look at this side, and then the top, and get rid of that outside edge right there on the fret. As long as you stay on that very, very edge, and you be careful not to scar the edge of the fretboard or the binding, you'll be just fine. That's the other thing too, is you could actually take a piece of masking tape and lay it down on the fretboard first, so that it protects the fretboard from any damage that you may do to it. Now we want to polish them. Unpolished fret, they're okay. Every guitar has unpolished frets to start with. However, if you take the time to polish your frets, I think you will find a much, much nicer playing experience. So the Lizard Spit polishing kit system comes with these fret guards, a polishing pad, and these compound impregnated little pads. The thing about polishing frets is you don't want to use steel wool. People will jump through the comments and say I've used steel wool for years, and I'm going to tell you, you've been doing it wrong. Here I am next to the pickup. If I were to use steel wool, there would be shavings and stuff sticking to the pickup, and you could say, well, I could tape over the pickup with masking tape. I will tell you that as a pickup builder, I have literally done rewinds where I've gone in there and literally seen shavings from steel wool stuck in the guitar. And here's what happens. It goes in the pickup and corrodes the pickup. All right, so we got our frets all polished up. I do need to do some cleanup on it. Probably going to use some lizard spit fretboard oil, give it a wipe down, clean all the residue off from the work we just did, and boom, we have shiny frets. This thing is going to play, and it already feels just running your hand up and down it and just kind of feeling it around. This is something that I think everybody needs to learn how to do. At least this level of maintenance, polishing your frets, oiling your fretboard. You don't have to do it every time you string your guitar, but I would do it often enough. This is one of those things, the polishing the frets deal especially. I get customers that call me all the time because we sell this on our website. We'll put a link to it below. It's not a sponsored video or anything, but we do sell this stuff on our website. And I get customers calling or emailing me afterwards all the time. And they're like, I had no idea that shiny frets could make such a difference in the playability of the guitar. It totally changes the feel, and it makes everything, I don't know, you just have to do it. You just have to do it. So even on an expensive guitar, and as a course of maintenance over time, because nickel will always corrode a little bit, and nickel is in these frets, so it should something that should be done regularly, I think, to keep your frets nice and shiny. Your guitar's going to play better. So we've got this thing sorted out. We've got the $200-ness of the frets completely sorted. In our next video, we're going to whip the tuners off of it, and we're going to rip all the guts out of it, all of the electronics and everything. We're going to see what's in there, and we may in one video just swap over the tuners, get all the guts out of it, and put a new set of pickups and new wiring in it. Maybe we'll do it all at once. I don't know. You guys seem to be racing to 30,000, so we got to get this guitar done so we can give it to one of you. So I don't want to dilly-dally too much. So I think it's going to go quick. This is really fun. My name is Dylan. This is Dylan Talks Tone. If you're new to this channel, make sure you subscribe. Make sure you comment. Make sure you hit the notification bell because, you know, we might give this to you. I'm already planning the next one. If this goes well, I told my wife this morning, I was like, we're going to have to do this again because this is really fun. I love the feeling of being able to give back to the community, and I love these kind of builds. So I think this is going to be super fun. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you in the next one.